So welcome to Deloitte's podcast. The topic today is testing cyber resilience. So we have today here two experts. So we have Tóth Gergely, director in Deloitte and focusing on testing and cyber resilience. And we have here Nicola Schneider, senior manager in Deloitte and focusing on cybersecurity strategy. So we are helping today organizations to navigate towards cyber resilience and to give them some support. So what do you think, what is the role of cyber threat intelligence in today's organization?
Very good question. Threat intelligence is about figuring out what is happening in the world, how actual threat actors are targeting the organization, or targeting similar organizations, or targeting a given geographical area like a country or a region. It focuses on multiple aspects of attacks. It can investigate what actual tools and techniques attackers have used in the past. It focuses on what type of pretext or scenarios attackers have historically used. It also focuses on what is visible from the organization to an outsider, being that what services are exposed to the internet, what employees could be targeted for social engineering attacks, and generally what information is available over that particular company or entity over the internet. And combining these two together, in the end, typically a threat intelligence gives some ideas what type of actual testing activities could be carried out for that particular organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe just a short example from the recent experience that we had regarding cyber threat intelligence that could be really relevant. On one occasion, we were working with our client on some project regarding the compliance, and one of our experts dealing with threat intelligence have noted that there is available information from that client, some secret top confidential information available, that they're experiencing some kind of a breach. The hacker stole some of the data without of the client ever thinking about it or being aware of that incident. So the client was confident in their incident response and their, I would say, tools they have, to secure their environment. But on the other hand, when you have access to threat intelligence data, you may see that some of this data has leaked outside the organization, and then in this way, you may be aware of some of the incidents that you haven't noticed, and this way, it can help you to, I would say, work on your vulnerabilities and strengthen your resilience of the organization. So not only, I would say, taking exercise in testing, it also can be quite valuable, in managing your organization on a day-to-day basis and securing your environment.
Yes, cyber intelligence threats are really important for the organizations. And what are the typical sources for what kind of cyber threat intelligence threats we have?
There are multiple sources that one can utilize. The first is obviously there are professional providers who provide so-called threat intelligence feeds that you can search. It includes aggregation from different portals or different sources. You can use also open source intelligence, so there are multiple tools that can be used to gather information, harvest information about a given organization. And there are also services that basically constantly monitor the internet and aggregate such information. So tools like Shodan or Census can be used as open source ones, and there are a lot of professional providers that can aggregate and give a meaningful and useful information source to organizations on threat intelligence.
And if organizations looking at this podcast, listening to this podcast, and they said, oh, okay, I'm a financial institute, and the other said, okay, but I'm in water supply, what threat intelligence should they use? Are there different information sources for them, or what should be your suggestion?
The sources are the same, I think, for any type of organization, or let's say the main categories of sources, but threats may be different. So in terms of financial institutions and critical infrastructure, some of the dangers might be different. In financial institutions, I think confidentiality aspect is a bigger question compared to critical infrastructure, whereas in critical infrastructure, availability of services and infrastructure is typically the biggest value, and therefore the threats are also different. On the other hand, some threat actors are not very choosy, so they target everyone that they can find. So there are common vectors for any kind of institutions who have any services available over the public internet.
Thank you. And if we are talking about cyber strategy, what do you think, Nicola? Should organizations use cyber threat intelligence, and should they integrate it to the cybersecurity strategies?
I mean, those are quite valuable information that organizations may find on themselves, or any, I would say, information on the sector. So, for example, if we talk about financial institutions, they may be specific threat intelligence on the financial institutions altogether. So they're quite valuable in, I would say, doing the testing, from your side, to ensuring that you can address those type of the attacks that that targeted some of their, I would say, competitors in the previous months or days. So it's, I would say, a good source of information to work on your resilience. So you can incorporate that into your incident response trainings. So you can, I would say, do the testing of from organizational perspective, testing of the incident response scenarios. You can, I would say, work on your response plans. So some kind of a written document that you may have that is supporting you in addressing the incident or resolving the incident. Maybe additionally, I would say, upgraded with that information that you may find. And of course, there's multiple types of testing which can be enriched by those information. So it's not only, I would say, once enough task for each organization, to comply with the regulation or do the ticking exercise for some other, I would say, group, maybe initiative. It can be quite valuable for institutions on a continuous basis. So it's good to have, I would say, continuous source of this threat intelligence, and to ensure and to incorporate those into your efforts.
Thank you. So we hear a lot of red, blue, purple. So there are all colors of the rainbow related to pen testing. So can you help us and navigate us? What are these colors, Gergely?
Absolutely. Yes, somehow these colors got into the picture of penetration testing and security testing. I think, at least as you mentioned, 3 colors and then a fourth one is important. The first one is what we call red teaming. Red teaming means that the attacker or the company that you engage to do the testing operates in secret. So the defenders don't know about the testing activities. And this way you can test not just the technical aspects, so not just looking for technical vulnerabilities, but you can also test processes like how do you react to an attacker operating in your environment. On the other hand, we have the so-called purple teaming exercises, which combine the testing activities and the detection activities. So those activities that the blue team do, so try to find out who tries to attack you and detect these activities, and actual testing activities together. So the attackers, the red teamers, and the blue teams, the defenders, work together, and red and blue makes up this purple. And in this case, basically, whenever the attackers do something, the defenders look whether they have detected it or how could they detect it and then improve the detection capabilities. And this is an iterative process. attack, defend, and this way, at the end, you will have improvements not just on the technical side, so finding vulnerabilities, but also on the detection side. And then there is the last color I would add here, which is the white, which is around, it's not an activity, but a team. There is a so-called white team, or sometimes also called control team. It's related to the red team activities, and the control team, or this white team, is, let's say, the governing body inside an organization who is supervising the red team activities so that it goes into the right direction and ensures useful results.
Okay, thank you. So we heard that also DORA and NIS2 emphasizes testing of resilience and regular tests. And DORA introduces a new term, not just pen testing, but threat-led pen testing. This is the new normal now, the TLPT. Can you explain it, please?
Threat-led penetration testing is basically a combination of the threat intelligence part and the red teaming part. When we are talking about threat-led penetration testing, the entity who carries out this TLPT first engages a threat intelligence provider, TIP, to perform the threat intelligence activities, which is basically a planning activity for the red team. They carry out analysis of the threat landscape for that particular organization, and in the end they derive scenarios. According to the TLPT, at least 3 scenarios need to be created at the end of the threat intelligence part. And then these scenarios will be executed by the red team. So the big invention, or the new thing about TLPT, is using the threat intelligence part to define the activities of the red teams. And this whole threat intelligence and red team together is then packaged into this TLPT process. There is some preparation phase at the beginning, identifying the scope, creating a risk management framework for it, then carrying out the threat intelligence, then carrying out the red team. And then in the end, there is also in the closure phase, an activity where the results of the red team are correlated with what the blue team, so the defenders, saw about the simulated attacks, and then these two are matched together, and then out of the red team activities, the blue team results, an action plan is then created in the end.
Okay, thank you. So it's more focused on led by the threat, what it is typically for these organizations. Okay, I see. Can you give us some real-world examples, or what you found interesting, or what was the most challenging in the last years?
Yeah, so first of all, maybe a clarification in this regard. TLPT is a new thing in DORA. So there are not too many organizations who actually have done TLPT yet. The whole TLPT concept is based on the TIBER regulation from the EU, which is a much older regulation. And we have a lot of experience around this TIBER, which has the same concepts, so threat intelligence-based red teaming. And out of these, there are many avenues that organizations can take benefit of. So I think the biggest benefit of this approach is that in the traditional sense, red teaming is, let's say, a wide picture. So it looks at a bigger area or a bigger surface of the organization, while penetration testing is typically a very focused activity, and it looks at smaller pieces, and these smaller pieces not necessarily fit completely together or map the whole attack surface. With the red team, we can look at a much bigger portion of the attack surface, and we can chain attacks, and this way get much more interesting results. So we can take, for instance, a result from the testing of one application, and then having obtained some privileges, going to a next application, or maybe going down to the infrastructure, and then going about it. And this way you can find a lot of interesting attacks. Also, one aspect I would add is that penetration testing is becoming more and more compliance driven.
Yes.
And on the other hand, red teams are more how to say it, more looking for new ways to attack, because typically the red team covers the standard activities. So within a red team, you need to look for novelties or some new ideas how to attack, and this way you can constantly be up to speed on the new attack techniques.
Okay.
Yeah, as you mentioned, so the penetration testing is, I would say, standard course of business. You know, you do it once a year to comply with regulation. You may have locally or regionally or within EU, and this way, I would say, we are making a shift, you know, towards more type of testing which simulates the real threat. So in this way, I would say organizations, as Gergely mentioned, it's not only some kind of standard scripts, you know, standard type of testing on based on new, I would say, or based on the old information. It's something that you need to rediscover, you know, how to, I would say, penetrate that I would say information system and deliver some kind of payload. So that's, I would say, major change. So it's quite beneficial that we have this shift, you know, within the EU, and I would say it's quite valuable for organizations to do it, because that way they are, I would say, working on their own, I would say, expertise, because as you mentioned, all the colors, we have all those in TLPT. So all the, I would say, parts of organizations are working together, and in the end they need to, I would say, collaborate to understand how the attack was delivered and how to respond on that in near future. And all that is based on threat intelligence which is customized and relevant for their I would say, institution. So it's much more, I would say, organization driven and incident response driven than standard penetration testing that usually involved only, let's say, public IP addresses of some organization and only small segment of that IP addresses. So we got, I would say, limited results, which are just taking exercise, and where security can deliver this information report to the management board and say, we are compliant, there is nothing red, nothing extraordinary, we are good. So it's much more, I would say, in touch with the real world than just an exercise.
Perfect, thank you. Then I hear that this is the TLTP is the new normal, and this is more beneficial also for the organizations.
This is the new norm, so the DORA regulation will bring this to all the major financial institutions, but I think it's like an addition. So it's not instead of the penetration testing, it's on top of the penetration testing. Penetration testing will stay there, so it's still mandated, and as Nicola mentioned, either yearly or upon a major change. But this whole TLPT process will add an additional layer of security on top of it. Also, TLPT is mandated typically every third year, so it's not every year, because also it's a very long process. So looking at the TLPT, it can be easily 9 months to maybe even a year, depending on how the institute and the institution and the financial authority works together. So it's multiple phases, multiple approvals, and then discussions with the financial regulator in between. So it's a lengthy process to go through it.
Thank you. So you also mentioned TIBER-EU, and I've heard that this is like a Rolls-Royce for resilience testing. Can you explain a bit in depth what is EU TIBER?
TIBER-EU is basically the predecessor or the template for the TLPT. So it is a combination of the threat intelligence and the red teaming in the whole process with the kickoffs, with the threat intelligence, with the scenario definitions, with the red team planning, red team executions, and then blue team discussions, and finally the closure phase. So all this together has been first described in this TIBER-EU, and then this has become later the threat-led penetration testing that actually has been mandated as part of DORA.
Thank you. So, I'm also keen on cyber exercises. And what do you think how penetration testing could help to form simulations or cyber exercises or scenarios?
I think there is a very good correlation between simulations and penetration testing or red teams. For instance, within red teams, red teamers constantly want to try out innovative solutions. So in the past, for instance, phishing was a big deal to get initial access as part of red teams. Now, with the advent of AI and with all these different avenues like voice phishing or this QR code-based phishing or AI deepfakes, there are many additional ways to get initial access in an organization. And these attacks will need to be also played through by the defender teams or by the organization itself. So whenever such a scenario is tried out as part of a red team, it makes completely sense to do this as part of a simulation as well, and do, for instance, a playbook around it and practice it, how it looks like in real world with those that potentially are the target. So I think whatever new attack methods you will innovate or will try to figure out in a red team, you can incorporate into the simulation as well.
Thank you. And since we done the penetration testing and we have the results there, how does it connect to the cyber strategy?
I mean, those are, I would say, one of the components of some overall, I would say, resilience program the organizations may have. So DORA mandates it's beneficial for organizations to have some kind of structured approach how to address all of the concerns they may have and address the risk. So within the program, the organization strategy program the organizations may have, it's beneficial to define all the potential types of the testing. Gary mentioned several of them. So of course TLPT as I would say the cornerstone or the maybe more exposed one, because a lot of people is talking about it in the media, is because it's quite heavy on the resources because it takes a lot of time to conduct it. But there are many more who are done, I would say, by the organizations themselves previously, and they're not highlighted that much. So within those resilience programs and types of testing, we also need to talk about penetration testing that you mentioned. Now it's still there, it still needs to be conducted as mentioned upon every major change or any major incident we may have. And of course there are additional testing like vulnerability assessments, which are always done and should be done. DORA mandates to do it in much higher frequency for the critical applications than before, the applications which are supporting critical important functions. Of course, there are some kind of there are network security assessments which are targeting the network layer. We have source code analysis which have been done by some organizations, but again, not all of them. So now it's, I would say, based on the current regulation, all these, I would say, types of the testing are combined in one place, and each organization can look it through, and it can help them to create a program around it. So it's I would say some kind of a guidance how to structure it and how to conduct the testing. Of course, it's not important to just have it written, to have it defined in some kind of policy or program. It's important to do implement those, and you do it on a frequent basis depending on the classification of your, I would say, criticality of your ICT assets. It's all interlinked, and it's difficult to have, I would say, one component without the other. So we need to have, I would say, one holistic approach, and to have all the assets in one place, to classify them on criticality and how they support the business in the end, and based on that, do the testing based on the, I would say, risk-based approach, and to ensure that you reduce the likelihood of some kind of vulnerability or threat to the acceptable level in the end.
I would add one, or actually two things on top of that. If an organization does a major project, a typical example would be relocating from on-premise to cloud, or rolling out a complete new suite of technologies, it absolutely makes sense to do a red team exercise around that scenario. Similarly, if there is a chain of attacks coming identified with threat intelligence on a particular technology, it would also make sense to do a red team around that. And on the other hand, if from a penetration testing program or from red team, you identify similar vulnerabilities across multiple applications or across multiple items, it would make sense to incorporate activities into your strategy on a longer scale, to focus on particular controls, to improve those controls, and not just try to fix individually vulnerabilities one by one. So I think penetration testing, a large-scale penetration testing program, can benefit into the, or can be an input into the control improvement program as well.
Okay, thank you. Nicola?
I mean, that's something that we see quite often, that organizations do the penetration testing or do the vulnerability assessment. Those information are into separate tables, for example. They're not interlinked, and they keep that open for a long period in time. So they're not used as an input to, I would say, to their control environment, to see which controls are, I would say, targeted by these vulnerabilities, and they're not, in the end, not even implemented or tested.
Yes, the organization needs this holistic picture and approach. And are there other common pitfalls that they can avoid? Or there are some suggestions from your side how Deloitte can help organizations to achieve being resilient to cyber attack, or more resilient?
So I think threat-led penetration testing will be mandated by the financial regulators at one point. But because this is such a complex endeavor, as I mentioned, it can easily take 9 to 12 months to go through with multiple phases, interactions with the authority. It makes absolutely sense to do a practice round around TLPT with a trusted advisor to teach the organization what this is about. So how to do the threat intelligence, how to select the scenarios, maybe do a scenario-based red team exercise, how to compile all the necessary documents around the threat intelligence, around the threat-led penetration testing, what type of interactions you can expect from a financial regulator around the different phases of the project, how to form the control team or this white team, how to involve the blue team. So there are multiple questions, and doing a practice round or a preparation around the whole process is something that we work with some organizations to prepare for the actual threat-led penetration testing. I think that's something that is a new thing that we can talk about. Of course, there is the whole digital operations resilience testing program. So all the activities that Nicola mentioned, penetration testing, vulnerability assessment, all the different test types are there. But this whole threat-led penetration testing and preparing for it is something new that is now new for everyone, basically, or for almost everyone.
Yeah, maybe just to add top of that, because as you mentioned, it's quite complex, so it's really good to have somebody to lead you through the whole process. So from the beginning, from creation of the program to creation of the procedures to support the whole process, and then to try to implement it on a small scale, on one example, on one scenario, to go through the whole process and to see what are the common pitfalls within your organizations, what are the components or the program that you may not have, or resources that you may not have so far. So it's all, I would say, easily identified, and it can help you prepare for the real one when the competent authorities say you're the one who need to conduct this type of testing. So you have some kind of experience behind you. You know, all the participants have gone through the process and on small scale, so it's quite easier to go through that, and I would say to complete it in a shortest time possible. You know, so we're not talking, for example, then about 60 weeks. It can be done in some lesser weeks, I would say, in the end.
Okay, thank you. So at the beginning we were talking about TTPs, tactics, techniques and procedures, and different threat actors like APTs, these advanced persistence threats. And I was just thinking, because there are also a lot of different sectors, not just financial sectors. So how do you see the sharing of this information between the vendors? Or do you have something, best practices related to this topic?
So I think threat intelligence forms a vital part for any major organization, regardless in which industry they are. So I think in today's world, I can very difficultly imagine a company that does not deal over the internet any sort of activities. And whoever is exposed to the internet will face these advanced persistent threats. They will face criminal organizations going after the money. They will face nation states aiming for some political agenda. So preparing for this and having up-to-date information around this is vital. Threat intelligence can help in this regard. There are many aspects to it, focusing on technologies, focusing on different sectors, geographies. So there are lots of pieces to the puzzle, but this will definitely enhance the resilience of any organization.
Thank you.
Maybe on top of that, not just maybe to have the external component, it's also important to have, I would say, collaboration across the clients, you know, because DORA is also talking about information sharing arrangements, because each organization should be able to share those IOCs with other, I would say, competitors on the market. So share this type of information is quite valuable. So on top of this, I would say, threat intelligence that they can acquire, it's also important to share this information among themselves in some kind of communities they may have. We see that this information is often shared within the groups. You know, we have parent company as a leading company within the group, and it's often sharing the threat intelligence over their internal, I would say, channels. But it's also important to have the sharing of this information on some kind of regional markets, because parent company may be doing business on completely different market and have completely different, I would say, threat landscape than the local one, or potential, I would say, attacks may be completely different. So that's important to share this information on a local level. We see now that some of the countries have, I would say, centralized approach to that, where the competent authorities are supporting this process. So it's good to have, I would say, to have the competent authorities involved in that, and ensure that they can easily share that information without any leakage of confidential information, because nobody wants to, I would say, in that process, to have the data breach in the end, or data leakage in the end. So
thank you. So thank you. I hope that we can have even more organizations to achieve cyber resilience, so on a higher maturity level. And thank you guys for being part of this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.